Hello, and welcome to Positive Fandom. I am your host, RrrMmmm, and tonight we're going to be talking about Season 1, Episode 6 of the Book of Boba Fett, and it's going to be incredible. I've got two fantastic guests, Tom Jr. Jackson. How are you, Tom?
I'm good. I am ready for this. I've had all day.
And,
I've read sink in. I've watched the episode again. So
oh,
this will be fun.
excellent. And we have Loco Lu. Loco Lu from Geeking Out. How are you, Loco Lu, tonight?
I am good. I am good. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for agreeing to come on and talk about the Book of Boba Fett episode 6. And, this morning, Tom Jr. Jackson and I were already talking about this in practically the middle of the night for us, 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning, because this is just another episode, Loco Lu, that just completely blew the two of us away. What was your overall thoughts? I mean, did you think that this episode was going to go in this direction now?
It's directed by Dave Filoni. Of course. You just gotta see it as this. Slow burn in the beginning, pay off at the end. That's basically it. And excuse me. For those who are new to Star Wars, this is a fantastic introduction. It speaks to your 80s and 90s nostalgia. And a lot of people like it, a lot of people don't, but it's okay. That leads to conversation. This is what's great about that community that always has difference of opinion, but yet can still come together under the banner Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a good point. What about you, Tom? We did the stream early in the morning. We were trying to keep our eyes open, because we were just so exhausted from staying up all night, but it was completely worth it. Tom, what are your thoughts about episode 6 and the direction that it's going in? Were you expecting it, and what did you think of it?
Was I expecting it? As I may have said earlier, everything is being done for a certain reason. So it's a slow burn from the beginning, but it's setting up all these different things, and now they're ramping it up in episode 5. And then just when you think episode 5 has brought you what you want, episode 6 goes, no, we're opening up the toy box for you. This is what we're giving you. So whatever episode 7 has, it's going to be something big. It's going to be bigger than this. And I think that's great. I really liked it. I liked the episode. I ended up watching it again today, and I was still dropped my parts too, and all the characters stuff. I was very excited for it. Very, very excited for it, and I think it's great. And yeah, Dave Filoni, he knows. He's like, yeah, we distracted them enough with the slow bits. Let's show them now really what we can do. And he brings it. He's bringing it.
Yeah, and I just want to say hi to some of the guys in the chat. Hello, Ricky B and Mikey Lito. Thank you so much for joining us in the live stream. I have to agree with both of you, but I have to also say that as a Grogu super fan, I'm a Grogu super fan. As a Grogu super fan, I wasn't ready to see Grogu at this moment. I convinced myself that I said, they're not going to show Grogu. This is just a teaser. Come on, be mature about it. You're not going to see Grogu. Don't wish for too much. And sure enough, when we did see Grogu, my jaw completely dropped, and I just couldn't even believe what I was seeing. In fact, I'm still in disbelief that I saw Grogu, and my heart was pounding so hard. I just worry about this character. For some super fans, we feel like he's our kid, like this little guy. But he seems to have such a profound effect over the outcome of a lot of things that happen in the Star Wars universe. And I just can't get over that, in regards to this. But I also have to ask the question, has this series forgotten that it's called the Book of Boba Fett?
I would say this. If you look at a lot of the legends and other book materials that we had in the past, they intertwine other stories together. So, for instance, one of the guys in this series episode, Cad Bane, he wasn't a main source of a character, but he was sprinkled in there through side stories, right? So they're doing the same thing. You know, it's called Book of Boba Fett, but it's being told who's the narrator, who's reading the stories. It's like, oh, but wait, before we continue here, let's talk about this side of the galaxy. Let's talk about this side of Tatooine. What's happening to our other comrades over here? So that's how I'm interpreting this series. It's not necessarily Mando, and you can't really compare Book of Boba Fett to Mando because Mando was basically written as if it was Boba Fett. The mysterious one, the one we know very little of, but we know enough of to be reeled in to watch the show. But because he's a Mandalorian, that's enough. And we're reeled in.
That's very interesting. And hello to Paul in Long Beach and to Latoya T. How are you, my girlfriend? And to Ozark Matt. I hope you are well. Tom, what do you think? Did they forget that this is called the Book of Boba Fett? What do you think about that?
No, I absolutely agree. With Loco Lu, I actually agree. It is the Book of Boba Fett. But now you're bringing in some side characters who are intertwining, and their stories are going to be going into their own stories. But everybody is going to, at some point, interact with Boba. You know, like Mandalorian. Mando went and ended up saying, "Hey, look, I think I know somebody that can help you. You know, they need more people. I think I can get some people for you." So now all of a sudden, Mando has become the guy who says, "I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy. I got a guy that can." He's become that guy now. Mm-hmm. But I really think that what they're doing is just setting things up. So you're seeing from the other point of view. Okay, so we need muscle. Well, I know how we can hire muscle. Episode 5 went into that side of the story of building up where Mando was till he meets up with Fennec. So we're seeing how that all interacts. This is now, you know, Mando goes, okay, I got to go see a little friend. You're seeing that. And then it goes into him going back and seeing Boba Fett. So it's all connected somehow. It's all connected, and everybody's gonna interact with someone at some point, and it's gonna be very special. And like I've said it this morning, this is a special episode. I mean, and not special in the way like an after school special, but it's a special where you've got some pretty interesting toys that are taken out of the toy box for this.
Oh, yes. And, you know, gentlemen, I have to say, you know, of course, I'm still very excited, as you can see. Like, I don't want to let go of Grogu. I want to hold on to this moment. If I could just keep this moment, you know, in time, you know, the way it is, I would. But we do know another episode is coming. And we got the pleasure of seeing Cobb Bane at the beginning of the episode, you know, and honestly, Timothy Oliphant, you know, he's played in, I can't think it was called Unforgiven or something like that. Another Western. What was it called, Tom?
The show he was in was called Justified.
Justified. He was in Justified.
Yeah, and that's coming back.
So, you know, like he has that kind of like, well, we're not going to let you do that here. You know, like it's like, yeah, you know. So, but I noticed that he was very firm with the Pikes, and these guys are dangerous. So I'm kind of curious, Loco Lu, in your opinion, do you think he was too aggressive with the Pikes just now?
No, I think because he doesn't have the intimidation of Boba Fett's armor, and people representing him as Boba Fett via appearance and scurrying away, he has to become the sheriff, the face of law, firmness, and a little bit of aggression, but not so much an aggression, more like, here's a warning, this is my town, I would let you guys leave. And, you know, we don't have to do anything crazy, just like every other cliche Western. And what did they do? They saw an opportunity, they took it, they fell, and one was smart enough to leave.
Yeah. And Tom, in your opinion, he left one of the Pikes alive so that he could go and deliver the message. Hey, if you come back and mess with us, this is what will happen. Um, and not only did he leave the message with him, but he also knocked over that huge container of spice. And it just blew in the wind, Tom. It just blew in the wind. That was quite a lot of money for Vance to let go. Why is he? Do you think that Vance is so against even just the spice trade on Tatooine?
He doesn't want the trouble. He even said that. Look, I'm willing to make this. Just say, look, you made a mistake. I'm going to let you go. Just do that. We'll have no problems. Until one of them takes out the gun and then he shoots three of them. There's one left. He's like, I'm not going to shoot you. I'm going to let you live. But you need to go and you need to tell whoever it is that you're working with, we do not want your spice. We do not want trouble. We do not want violence. We just want to be left alone.
Yeah, and I think that he has so much character for doing it without armor too, right?
Right, but you know what that sounded like too? Boba Fett.
Oh.
When he was think about it, when he started coming out saying, look, I rule with respect, I don't rule with fear.
Mm-hmm.
But he would tell people, look, you do your thing, I'm going to do mine. I will not bother you unless you bother me. So in some ways, it's like, it's almost like a mirror of that. It's like, I don't want violence. I don't want this. And it's almost like Din with his, with episode 5, when he gets on the thing, on the ship, where you need to hand over your weapons.
Mm-hmm.
He hands that stuff over because he really doesn't want to have to be stuck with fighting someone. He's like someone who's like, I have something I need to do. I don't need trouble from anyone. You need this? Here you go. But I don't want the trouble. So this show is very much people who don't want the trouble. That's what it's beginning to look like.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's going towards what it's really going to go for is them all going up against the Pikes, and they're going to get the trouble that they want, that they don't want. But obviously, they want to set a message.
And
There's a message they want.
I also took the container that had all that spice blowing in the wind as a foreshadowing of what was going to happen to the spice trade on Tatooine, after, let's say, episode 7. So I have a feeling that the spice is just going to blow in the wind, and, it's not going to be a lucrative place to trade spice anymore, or whatever they plan on doing with it, but it's going to be over. And then, of course, gentlemen, the scene that I still am flabbergasted over, because I would have bet money, if I had money to bet, that we were not going to see Din going to see Grogu in this episode. I swore to myself, it's not going to happen. So don't look for it. Don't build up your hopes for this. You'll get it in a few years. You'll get that in a few years. To my surprise, Din travels to see Grogu, and this is like, this was like, oh my God, it was orgasmic. I'm sorry. This was like, for a Star Wars fan, this was so much wonderful, visual things. We get to see R2-D2, and R2-D2's got his personality. He's just like, hey, come on this way. And I wanted to ask what both of you thought about the fact that Din gets to see Luke's school being built. I mean, this is such a special time for Luke, and a defining time, even just for Jedi in general, a rebirth of what it could mean, for all the Jedis who desire to go to that school. Loco Lu, what did you think about the fact that Din was one of the first persons to see this school being built, and what's the significance of that?
Well, we see Mando as we see ourselves. So through his adventures, we are him. Just, taking in everything and viewing everything from his point of view being our point of view. But this was also a meditative state for Din, because Din's impatient. Din needs things now. this ties into his his imbalance with the Darksaber. So as he sits and waits and sees the school rebuilt, or school being built, the school being built is for us, the fans, to tie in everything cohesively. But on the other end, we're seeing that Din has to learn patience, which he does not have. And this is like almost a innuendo into, like, you're gonna get what you want, but are you really gonna get what you want? So we saw Grogu, but we didn't necessarily see that moment where Din and Grogu connect finally. It's more of a tease, like, okay, Luke and Grogu are there studying on the Force, and then Ahsoka comes and, two friends, hey, how you doing? Da 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 da. Remember yeah. This, that, and the third. And basically with that, it was more of, what do you want for Grogu, if, like, psychologically, if he is your foundling, or your child, so to speak, your adoptive child, what do you think is best for the child? Do you think what's best is you to go in and, bring back old feelings, or let him choose for himself and be an individual, in the sense of, what do you think is best? Can you protect him on a constant basis? And that means also emotional, like psychological. Are you going to keep him, fighting himself just because you're there?
Yeah, and that's a very good point. And Tom, I do have to ask this question, and we do actually have some interesting comments in the chat. I'm just going to say, Paul in Long Beach says, as a man who's follically challenged, the dude has awesome hair, and I think he's referring to Timothy Oliphant. And one guy, Gary Banjas Sandwich Worthington, says he sees Grogu from a distance, like a distance, like, just to make a joke. And, Tom, I have to ask this question. So of course, Din has traveled all this way to see Grogu. He has something very important to give him. It's very important. Right. Like, this is kind of like, I'm delivering something that's so important. It's of mythical proportions. It is of mythical proportions. He's got a special Beskar thing to give to Grogu. Did you feel it was okay to keep Din and Grogu completely apart, even though they could kind of sense each other and in some instances see each other?
Well, excuse me. Watching it again, it turned out that Ahsoka was trying to teach Din a lesson, saying, "Look, Grogu is training, and he misses you very much. And if he sees you, it'll make it harder for him to decide whether he wants to continue his training. But yet, if you see him, how much harder is it going to be for you to want to leave without him? Would you be doing this for you or him?" And you see that hesitance of, am I doing this for him or myself? And he makes that decision, it should be up to him. It should be his decision. And I don't want to get him in trouble. So he says, just make sure he gets this gift, so nothing happens to him. And then you notice that when he leaves, Grogu sees the ship, and Grogu knows exactly who that was from the distance that he's at. And also that scene where Din is leaving is a great mirror callback, I should say, a great callback to when Luke had Yoda in his bag on his back. But then this time it was Grogu. And that was not only so cute, but it was like, you really kind of wanted to see them meet up again, but then you really kind of understood where Ahsoka was coming with her thing. She was teaching him patience, and he doesn't have the patience. And I think in the long run, it's going to turn out that being a better Mandalorian, you have to have that patience. And that patience could probably come with maybe operating with the dark saber, having the patience, having clearing the mind and all that stuff. It's very much like training a Jedi. That's why the dark saber was so heavy. His mind was clouded with thinking about Grogu and not about enemy. Not about why it was reacting the way it was. And it's the same reason that when Luke takes out the little ball and says, "This is to help you learn," and you react to it, and it'll show you how to jump and whatnot. And at first, he just stands there, and Grogu is probably thinking of Din. And when it shoots him and knocks him over, he's like, "Oh." He goes, "No, clear your mind and try to react to it."
Mm-hmm.
And once he starts doing that, you see him doing all the jumping and stuff, and it awakens something in him.
Well, it's interesting that you went in that direction with it because, of course, the backpack scene, I was brought to tears when I saw that. And of course, the frog scene too, because it was so, an Easter egg to, the X-Wing scene. But I do like, gentlemen, how Luke says, Ahsoka was had said, and I'm not quite sure if this is her exact quote, but she says, "Oh, I can see the training is coming along." And Luke says, "I'm only reminding him." And I thought to myself, if he's only reminding him, that means that maybe Grogu's training is much more advanced than we thought. What are your thoughts on that, Loco Lu?
That brings up what we already seen in season 1 and 2 of Mando. That is, we know Grogu he's a Force user. We seen this with him healing. We see this with him repelling stuff. We see this with the eggs when he was eating it from the frog lady. You see this with the little ball from the Razor Crest that was on the shift knob. And he's just playing with it out of reflex. This is all reflex. But Luke reminding him is more of him honing down and sharpening that skill. Now, the other side of that coin, with Din being imbalanced and learning patience and stuff going his way, Grogu's facing the same challenges, but it's different for Grogu because he's facing inner darkness versus light. Because majority of the stuff that he's been doing, as far as like the flames is concerned, it's reaction out of emotion for protection of a loved one. And if you know the Sith code and the Jedi code, Jedi is very, stern, strict, straightforward, very cold, just the terms. And then when you look at the Sith code is all about emotion and diving in, and you tap into those qualities via the reactionary emotion. So it's very it's a callback to a lot of things. It calls back to Anakin. It calls back to all the prequel trilogies. So, it's great. This is all that sugar and spice, everything nice that we got in this episode, and I love it. It just got me excited for the next episode.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. I'm sorry. Latoya T says, I think in the scene, Din was presented with the next level opportunity to ground himself in his discipline as a Mando and evolve his deeper consciousness like the Jedi. And, I had kind of alluded to, Tom has been so patient with me in regards to this, the idea that Din is around so many, he's around so many Force users now. And not only just the Force users, but Force weapons. There's got to be something that's going to rub off on him, at least in the ideology point of view. And I think that, her comment, definitely shows that. Another gentleman here, Gary says Grogu will want adventure with Din. And Paul from Long Beach, he says he's out of there. They didn't put the capsule on the Naboo ship for fun. And finally, I hope I'm doing this right. oh, sorry. Slippery hands, people.
Mhm.
BSP, and thank you for joining us, BSP. Fun fact, Ahsoka is a Hindu name. It means one without despair. So I personally did not know that, but it is nice to see the comments from everybody. And I do just want to say thank you, everybody, for joining us. Now, Tom, I want to ask you a question about a really, first of all, God, there were so many incredible scenes. I'm sorry, guys. There's so many, it was so good. Okay. I had to get that out. Tom, I wanted to ask you about, it is actually very serious. This is a really serious situation. When Luke saw Grogu, at some point during this episode, we see a situation where he's talking to him about, do you want to remember? And it gets very serious. And, you know, Grogu, I guess for all practical purposes, is still a child. And we see this scene. Obviously, what he's witnessing in the scene is Order 66. And I have to say, gentlemen, that you could see Grogu witnessing it, and he's terrified. Like, he doesn't even know what to make of this. Tom, Grogu is suffering from PTSD. Do you think that that experience at the Jedi Temple is going to have an influence over the decision as to his final decision of what he's going to do with his life, let's say? What do you think, Tom?
I think it could. It probably could. Then again, you know, as I may have said this morning, you don't know if Luke saw the vision of what Grogu was remembering. But when he came back, he was like, "Welcome back," and it makes me wonder, what did Luke see Grogu go through as he was going back to those memories? How was Grogu reacting outside of those memories when we weren't seeing the physical body of it while he was going through that? How he was reacting. But a line came out of that, out from when he was trying to train Grogu, and Luke's like, "Well, I don't know if his heart is really into it, and if he really wants to train." And Ahsoka looks at him and goes, "So much like your father." And I think Luke got an idea of where this may be going. You know, where maybe Grogu probably won't follow through becoming a Jedi. The PTSD could have seriously scared him from wanting to do that, because what if what happened with Order 66 happens again? What is he going to do then? And also, Grogu probably has Din on his mind. You know, why was he here? What was going on? Is he okay? Is he in trouble? Does he need me? So when Luke gave him that, I don't want to say ultimatum, the choice, Grogu's choice, not Sophie, Grogu's. I think he has an understanding of where Grogu is going to take it, because Grogu was going to go for the shirt and then for the lightsaber, and no, you can have only one.
Mm-hmm. I want to piggyback off of that real quick.
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
That whole scene is basically Wolf and Cub. Here's the ball. Here's a knife. My son, choose one. If you choose the ball, I'll send you with your mom. You choose the sword, you come with me on an adventure. And that's basically what that is. Now, in this aspect, which is the ball and which is actually the knife? The armor is technically supposed to be the knife in this situation, because that leads to more adventures with Din. The sword necessarily is the ball, which would end the sequel trilogy, because who was the first student in Luke's new academy? Who was originally supposed to be? That brings up the other question: what are we going to see? What are we not going to see? Because there was a cast call for the last episode, And oh boy, I can't wait. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but I already know who's popping up. I'm just saving it because some people want to be spoiled, some people don't, and I respect other people's wishes that we're just talking about this specific episode. But powerful, powerful episode.
Loco Lu, can you answer Mikey Lito's question about help me explain that comment so much like your father?
So much like your father, Luke. Luke, he usually let people decide things for themselves and didn't want to, if you know anything about the Clone Wars, Annie is specifically in tune with other people's emotions, and he wants to like make them feel good and do the right thing and do it at the same time. And sometimes, and majority of the time, the Jedi Order, they weren't having none of that. So basically, you either do what we said or you're going against the grain. And what happens when you go against the grain? You get reprimanded. And being reprimanded is not good because you have all this laundry list of things to do. No one wants to be reprimanded, specifically if you're considered a Jedi, which is in turn knight or samurai. So, you know, when you have that top tier class of individual, you don't want to do more chores than the commoner. You know, you want to be, you know, at that status. And Annie's different, you know. Annie's Tatooine all day, you know. Like I built things with my hands. I sense people, you know. I want to be around people. I love people, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's an excellent explanation. And so, gentlemen, I have to tell you one other thing that I found incredibly interesting in this particular episode. And I'm sure you both have seen in different chat forums. Yes, Gary says they will not be alone in the final episode. Old friends and family will return from the past. So, you know, guys, prepare yourself. Prepare yourself. I did want to talk a little bit about every now and then, you know, I'm sure when you're on the internet, someone will pose a question. If you could have any force power, what would it be? And my answer has always been and continues to be force jumping. So you can imagine my pleasure when I saw Luke training Grogu in force jumping. I mean, I was just like, oh my God, this is so amazing. My head actually started to hurt because I just was like, it was overload. And you know, I think the reason why I chose force jumping is because it allows you to get out of the way of danger and jump to safety. And I also wondered, depending upon your size and strength of use of the force, whether if you were with another person, you could grab them and kind of like jump out of the way with them. You know, like my mind starts to work in these different ways. But I was just kind of curious, you know, and so I feel like I have to ask both of you if there was a force ability that, you know, you could have, and you don't have to just choose one, but let's just say you had two that you loved. It's okay. It's okay. Loco Lu, what would your force ability be?
Me, I would choose Force Lightning.
Ah, okay.
Force Lightning. To have that kind of kinetic power with the environment to create the actual lightning that comes out of your own palms. That you can use that in many different ways. You can use that to start a fire. You can use that to illuminate an area. You can use that to even save a life if you don't have, you know, clear. You know, you can.
Yeah.
You know, you can use it for a multitude of things, including in battle and combat. But that would be for me. You know, a little partial to lightning.
And Tom, do you have a specific force ability that you would want to have if given the choice? And you can choose more than one. I'm not going to be like, well, if you could only choose one.
I just thought of this. I would do the force jumping, but also I would do, well, with the force, you could lift things.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And so, like, if something's coming towards you,
right? Is it called force levitation?
So if something was coming towards you, you could levitate whatever it is, throw it back, and then do a great force jump away from whatever it is, you know? So yeah, I would have those.
And that's a good point. Mikey Lito says my power would be force suggestion, and that does actually exist.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of them. And of course, I think the for me, and I know that force jumping is not the most powerful force ability. Like I knew that, but I just find it incredibly cool. And I think it's because I used to do gymnastics and I kind of associate that with force jumping. I think the most powerful one is, and maybe Loco Lu, you could remind me of what it is. It's actually really two of them. The first one is the one that Palps had where he could kind of hide his abilities. So, so it might be something like force screening or force, stealth or whatever it is.
Yeah, like it's like hiding in plain sight kind of thing. You're cloaking your energy and your aura and what people can sense around you.
And the second one for me is the one that Mace Windu has. And that ability, and I can't remember what it's called, Loco Lu, but the one I'm referring to is the fact that he can identify a dark user's abilities.
Oh, you're talking about the lightsaber combat, which is Vapa.
Okay.
But I also where he uses the dark energy and repels it against it. It's part of that, and he's the only one that does it besides someone else. But I believe it's pronounced Vapa.
And Mace is very special because unlike, I'm not going to say all the Jedi were not like this, but Mace is very special because he's a descendant of just all Jedis that were stranded on a planet. And can you imagine, just trying to be able to, survive as a normal person, but then imagine trying to be able to survive amongst a bunch of Jedis. And the only other example that I can think of a group of people that use the Force in that way, like a religion, are obviously the Night Sisters, who, like everything they did was, surrounded by the Force. And it was like, literally part of their religion and part of their existence. And I think that that's so interesting, when you think about it. So it's kind of fun to kind of think about this because, sometimes it's true that they all have different abilities, but sometimes just seeing Grogu to be able to utilize so much. So for me, as far as I'm concerned, and this may not be true, but as far as I'm concerned, I feel like Grogu is already trained as a Jedi, but I don't know whether he could be a master. I don't know what other things he would need to do. And, let's be honest, Luke is on his own now. Like he's doing this and he is consulting with Ahsoka. And, she was trained in the Jedi Temple. So was Grogu. This is a very unusual time for him. He's got a very unusual student. I have to give Luke credit. It was actually very peaceful watching him train Grogu. It almost felt, I'm not going to say it was like a relationship that he has with Din, but there definitely was this, sense of guidance and protection over Grogu that I have not seen that, pretty much Din couldn't give him. And that's okay. I love Din. I love that man. But I did kind of look at it, as, the difference between, let's say the father figure that Din is and this mentorship and this guidance that Grogu is getting that I feel like he does need. But I think that at some point, perhaps he's at a point where he's been so detached from it that he may have outgrown some of some of this stuff and has already progressed to a point where he can be somewhat more independent. So, now, I also wanted to get both of your opinions about this comment that Luke made. And honestly, it reminded me of kind of like when you see a couple breaking up. And I don't know why I thought this. When he turns to Ahsoka, when Luke turns to Ahsoka and says, "Will I see you again?" Like, it was like, oh my God, Luke has a question that he doesn't know the answer to. This guy's a master. He doesn't know the answer. And I thought it was very funny because Ahsoka didn't tell him yes or no, because, of course it's with the will of the Force that they see one another. But I just it felt like a breakup. Was it a breakup? It wasn't exactly awkward, but will they see each other again? What do you think, Loco Lu?
I think they will. There's too much money involved with the mouse to not have these people meet up again, story-wise, and it's something that we don't see a lot of, specifically when it comes to Jedi, and that's romance. Romance is very shunned, and it's like no. That's what happened with Annie. So, things are coming full circle. And back to real quick, I wanted to highlight something you had said earlier. I noticed the relationship with Grogu and Luke is more like Obi-Wan and Luke. So I just
Ah.
wanted to touch that real quick.
Okay. And that's very interesting because, that is very interesting. Wow. What do you think, Tom? What are your thoughts? Do you think Ahsoka and Luke are going to see each other again? And did you think that comment almost like it felt like a breakup comment? I guess maybe because I've seen so many breakups. Like, are we going to see each other again? Like about the only thing he wasn't doing was like crying. But to see
Well,
Luke, he seemed a little
knowing
vulnerable to me.
well, knowing your love for Hallmark movies, this wasn't a moment from one. I, um, if you really think about it, and you go back to episode 1, when I think it's Anakin, I forgot who he was talking to. It may have been Padme, or it may have been Qui-Gon Jinn. I can't remember which one it was, but Anakin goes, "Will I see you again?" You know, and when Luke said that, it felt like a callback to that. Like they're really bringing on these callbacks
It's
that
so
are like,
good. It's so good.
yeah, it's like because when you said that to Ahsoka, it's like, "Will I see you again?" And I don't think it was more like a relationship wise, but I think it was more like to help guide me, And
Mm.
I think Ahsoka may have it where she knows Luke can do it, but she doesn't. I think what did she say? Like maybe or something like that, or she doesn't say
Perhaps. I think she said
anything.
perhaps.
Yeah,
I don't remember the
perhaps.
exact words. I'm
She
sorry,
said
Tom.
perhaps.
Yeah, so it's more like maybe at some point down the road, Luke is going to need her help, and she may know it, but she's not going to say it because she doesn't want that clouding his mind. So she
Mm-hmm.
just goes, perhaps, perhaps. But the callbacks that they're doing in this show with Luke and mirroring his father, and then mirroring Obi-Wan and Yoda, and yes, it's as they call as certain people would call it, jangling keys or fan service, but it's being done in such a way that it's going to make the fans go, oh. Like
Tasteful.
after they watch it, like during the watching it, they're not going to pick up on it, but afterwards they'll think about it and go, "Oh, that reminds me of this."
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because when you're watching the episode, you're like trying to figure out where everything's going, but then you take that time to sit back and think about it, and then it comes rushing to you, like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh,
That brings me up
this
to.
reminds me of this
Go ahead,
moment."
Loco Lu. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, funny thing, you had mentioned earlier with Luke and Ahsoka, and she saying perhaps. I think I got it. Who, besides Yoda, who is the other Jedi that Luke has been around? From what he understands, all the Jedi are gone. They're legend. They're not there no more. He's the only Jedi. The closest thing to a Jedi is standing right next to him, and Jedi strengthen numbers, and there's always a multitude of them. So force sensitive, sensing force sensitive, the longing to be a next to another force sensitive user. I think that's what's being shown there too. Now that Tom mentioned it, I'm like, yeah, I can see that.
Hmm. And Darth Plato says, I think it's more of a sibling thing. Ahsoka was Anakin's student. And Mikey Leto says, it depends on whether or not Ahsoka was on the planet to begin with. I got the impression she had been on the planet for a while, and maybe she was helping him set up how he was going to do the school. One other viewer, who was it? Ricky B, asked, how long will it be before Grogu talks? That's a good question.
Another
Maybe
50 years.
another, yeah, 50 years or so. Here is a good question. Darth Plato says, so Luke can do attachments, but not Grogu? Doesn't seem right.
Well, Luke doesn't really have any attachments. That's the thing. It's more of the Force wanting to be with more Force users, being around more Force sensitive people, because you feel different. It's different. It's like one hand washes the other, both hands wash the face situation.
Yeah, that's a good point. And Mikey Lito says, I've seen a lot of discussion today that it is unfair to make Grogu choose. Apparently, when Luke was presented with choice, he either didn't make one or chose both. And this is a good point. And of course, like at the end, Grogu's like, like what? And I'm like, take both, Grogu, take both, or, I think it's very interesting. And thank you to Just a Brown Girl Network. Hi. Thank you for loving the headdress. Thank you so much. And I also did want to ask you both about something else. Din eventually leaves, and it is a tearjerker. We can see Grogu kind of seeing him disappear off. And I heard later on that like a lot happened in the second half of this episode as well. So after all these sort of milestones and incredible things that we've seen, it goes on to really just have some incredible moments. When Din finally gets to back to Tatooine, and he joins the team in the palace, Din is incredibly confident at this point that he can take care of business and bring forth a bunch of fighters. Do you think that his recruitment of Cobb Vanth, which makes sense, would be considered a team along with the townspeople who I thought were essentially like miners? When I say miners, I mean who dig in the ground, like they mine, whatever it is they're mining. Are these people fighters? Are those the people that Din is referring to who are going to be able to help Boba Fett? I mean, what do you guys think? Tom, what do you think?
I think well, I think
I'll wear it. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I noticed what Paul in Long Beach was saying. Said the same thing that I said to you earlier, by the way.
Thank you both, and thank you everybody in the chat.
Anyways, I think he's going to be leading. I think he's going to be leading the fight. I think Din will be leading the fight with Boba and all them. We got a little bit of that Magnificent Seven Samurai moment where they're all standing around going over, okay, here's the place, here's where all the families are laying and wait, to let the Pikes do what they want to do. They're not going to help us. So we're going to have to figure out how to take down the Pikes ourselves. And that's their, like, almost a bit like their the strategy moment, And then Din's like, well, we only have so many here, and we're going to need someone. And Din's like, I know some people that can help. And they all look at him like, oh, okay. Like they weren't expecting him to chime in with that. But it's more like, you notice you have Black K there. You have the motorcycle, the Vespa gang.
Mm-hmm.
You got all these people that they've brought in together. And like I said before, Boba knows what he's doing. He's bringing these people together for a reason, and he's playing something. He's playing. He's doing this, what they call the long con, where he's making them think that he's not with it. He's not smart enough. He doesn't care about anything. But he's got a plan, and there's a reason that he wants to take over that the huts. For the huts, and he wants to free Tatooine from those families. Who knows? it's really anybody's game there with that whole plot of what exactly he wants. But I think what we're gonna get now, because Din has gone to Timothy Oliphant's character. I keep forgetting his name.
Cobb Vanth.
And then, yes. And he says, "Look, we need your help." And he's like, "Well, we're fine now. We're free. We're fine. We don't want any problems." And he goes, "Well, it's very hard to ask for a favor." And once he leaves, you hear Cal go, "Get everybody a fighting age and bring them in. I'm going to talk to them." And I think what he was going to do was he was going to put it to a vote. But because Cad Bane showed up, which at first I thought that was Luke coming with Grogu to look for Din. But then when I noticed the way that Cal went out there, and it was almost like that Western thing, like, you come into my town and you want this, and it's the standoff that they had. And then seeing that both the sheriff and the deputy is shot, and you see the had that look on his face like, oh, now it's on. So you know, he's gonna find Din and he's gonna say, "Look, this happened. We're in it with you, but we want to get this guy as well." So I think they're gonna go, "We will help you if you help us get this guy." So it's gonna be another thing like that. How they wanted that first time, they needed help with that big monster snake in the sand or whatever it was.
Yeah, the Krayt Dragon.
Yeah, the Krayt Dragon. So now it's going to be another, if you help us, we're going to help you.
Well, Loco Lu, we saw Cad Bane, and Cad Bane is like virtually impossible to kill. Like, this guy he's maybe the second most dangerous bounty hunter in the universe, a galaxy. And we've seen him through the years, Clone Wars. I don't know if he was in Rebels, but maybe he was. I can't remember just now. But do you think Darth Plato is right, Loco Lu? Do you think that the finale is going to have an ending in par with Empire, especially since Cad Bane is like almost impossible to kill that guy?
Possibly. There's so many callbacks and a lot of fan service that's going back to OT stuff and Clone War stuff. So we could see that. We could see that. And oh man, the makeup work on Cad Bane.
Oh, God.
Like, they literally took CGI and practical effects and made it cohesive. The eyes, you couldn't do that on practical effects. You needed to have some CGI. But the makeup was on point. I can't wait for that hot toy. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a great hot toy. There's going to be so many more hot toys that are going to be announced from this. This is the sideshow Grogu, Michaelito. In case you were wondering, it's the sideshow. He's got the you can only see part of him, but this is his outfit. He's got the shifting knob. It's magnetized, so it sticks, it stays in his hand, and you can see him here, in case you wanted to see what he looked like with his little outfit on. And it's fleece, so it keeps him warm. And Darth Plato goes on to say, honestly, I was hoping Mando was referring to Bo's gang or Bill Burton or Cara Dune, not those chaps at Mos Pelgo. I personally was surprised because it's not that they aren't possibly strong. It's just that we already know right from the get-go that we might have lost Cobb Vanth already. And that's worrisome. What do you think about the fact that Cobb Vanth was quite thwarted by his deputy or whoever that guy was? Made things really hard for him. And I'm really wondering, how, that's the type of thing that'll mess you up. And we see that in Westerns. We do see that in Westerns, but
it's cliche.
Is Cobb Vanth alive?
Yeah. And the reason being is, if you notice, everyone went to his aid. They didn't go to the deputy. He was gone. He got more than a couple of shots into him. But Cobb Vanth only got one. And it looked like he got hit in the shoulder. And they looked like they went with the medic team. And you saw the look on the barkeep's face. Granted, he's not the most handsome looking fellow, but he was in fear, angry, and is like, what are we going to do? Now, if back to that discussion between Cod and Din, they were already square. And they said, yeah, we're square. You know, we are exchanged up. We have no business with each other. And that's when that whole, it's hard to ask for a favor. Now, it makes sense why he would go to him. Two reasons. One, they're making a Hot Toys version of him with the Boba Fett armor. Two, it's convenient because it's on the same planet.
Right.
Instead of going to get, Cara Dune or the rest of his guys back at wherever other planet he was at. Right there, everyone is there nearby. Everyone is close. He doesn't have to get on the ship and fly out. Who are the locals? Who are willing to follow Boba Fett into the next regime, the next empire? And being a daimyo, basically a samurai in his territory and protecting his territory, where we're seeing him taking forth that leadership, because now he's building up his ranks. And if you notice, it's playing more on the Godfather role. So he's like, you never show your hand. You tell people what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And when people spit at your offering and spit at peace, you don't show displeasure in it. You show it when the enemy's dead. And that's what's going to happen. The only thing is this: who is the head of the syndicate?
Yeah, that's a good question. Is Crimson Dawn actually the head of the syndicate? And Isaiah Matthew asks a really good question. And I kind of think, when Cobb Vanth had Boba Fett's armor, and we know how he attained it from the Jawas, it would be very fitting if he ends up being the person who ends up getting the armor, because, I've said this before. I feel like Boba Fett doesn't want to just like die and the armor doesn't go to someone. There's a long legacy of it being left in his chain code and how important that was to him. And that's why for a long time in the series, I always thought that Boba Fett was going to have a family or somebody who he would leave this armor to. And why not leave it to somebody like Cobb Vanth in the end, who had been keeping it safe, was not abusing the armor, using it for good and for defense pretty much. I think that Boba Fett, that could be a consideration. Tom, Isaiah Matthew, hi Isaiah Matthew, says this episode really felt like a Star Wars movie, but in show form. Maybe Grogu will feel Din is in trouble, and listen to the words he used. He will feel. I have a feeling that they have this connection that's very special. He'll feel he's in trouble, then leave like Luke did. I don't know. Maybe that's too on the nose. What do you think, Tom?
I think that sounds that Matt, that second part where he says, maybe Grogu will feel Din is in trouble. It sounds a lot like what we were talking about this morning, where, they're very much have a connection, Din and Grogu. They are connected to each other for a reason. And I think it could possibly happen. Grogu could leave just like Luke left, and then said, "I'll be back. I'll be back. I promise." It could be mirroring that again. But yeah, I want to touch back a bit on the deputy who Cobb kept saying, "Get back inside. Get back inside now." And this guy's like, no, I have to be out here to help you. And you could tell from the look on Cobb's face, I don't want your help. I have this under control. Now, had that deputy not have gone for his gun, maybe things would have been a little different. Maybe Cobb would have been left alive. But because just trigger finger had to go for his gun, they both got shot. You know,
Yes.
but I do agree with Isaiah Matthew that the episode really did feel like a movie,
Yeah.
and I think next week we'll probably get an extended episode, maybe it'd be an hour and 15 or something like that. Who knows? But I think we might get that feeling of a movie again. And I like the fact that
Excuse me.
the episode left us with a Godfather feeling.
Yeah.
That
um,
very end of it, where we're gonna go in here and boom, we're gonna blow up the club, and
yeah.
this is
Yeah.
gonna happen. So it's almost like that scene where Pacino goes, "I went to the mattresses
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
with the five families. They're being
And
taken care of as we speak."
Yep.
Paul in Long Beach asks, I always wonder, why aren't there 20 guns pointing at Cad Bane? Isn't everyone basically heavily armed? And I'm guessing not, Paul. And I don't even know the answer to that question, but it's a good question. And it does keep coming up. Like what exactly are people carrying? I guess generally they don't have weapons. And, perhaps weapons is the second most expensive thing to spice out, in the dirts of Tatooine, and maybe water out trumps them all. But talking about this finale, and last week I had said that I thought, or at least a few weeks in a row, I'd said, well, how do you shake this show up? And I'm like, well, the most ideal thing would be for the Pikes to bomb the palace, just go ahead and bomb the crap out of it. But Boba shouldn't be in the palace when it's bombed. He should be at Sanctuary with Garza Fwip, like in a compromising position, finds out the palace was bombed. He runs back to the palace, tries to save everybody. He's sort of like caught with his pants down, so to speak. So I'm sorry about that, but I still think that would have been cool. But, gentlemen, I couldn't have guessed that. In fact, even when they brought in that Curus or whatever it's called into the Sanctuary, I didn't know it was going to happen, but I'm sure pretty much everybody here knew what was going to occur. Why blow up the Sanctuary, Loco Lu? Why blow that up?
Just like any mob movie and any Western or samurai movie, you have to deliver a message. And the message comes with destruction. And with destruction comes casualties. So Boba Fett came in, did his thing, he took over, and he didn't know who's connected to who or whatever the case may be. So he's trying to lay down new guidelines, new territory, and all that other stuff, not knowing what was happening in between the mix. So whatever businesses he technically nullified by killing Fortuna, he basically inherited war. He inherited a battle that he wasn't ready for. And if he was being the ruler he claimed to be, or the daimyo he claimed to be, to protect everybody, that nothing's going to happen, or no good deed wouldn't go unpunished without him noticing, this is the time that it's going to show. And if you also notice in this episode, Finnick Chan was just his right hand just laying down, like strategy. This is what we got to do. We need this,
Yes,
we need that.
yes,
And
she was,
he didn't say a thing.
Yes, it
We're
was so
going
weird.
back to old Boba where he doesn't say nothing.
Yeah, he was
which is
quiet.
good. Which is good, because this means I don't say nothing. She knows what I'm thinking. She knows, because she's my right hand. She owes me her life. And I, in turn, they may have a romantic relationship. I'm assuming the latter. But also, it's a respect factor. They're both bounty hunters, right? And even when she went to go see Mando, or then she had a joyous look in her face, because the last time they were together, they were kicking ass and taking names. Let's not forget about, season 2 of Mando at the very end, where we had, the girls kicking ass, cleaning house, basically sweeping the place up, pow, pow, pow. But going back to what we already seen and what we know, things are going to pop off in a very, very interesting way. And a lot of people are anticipating it, and some are not ready for it.
I'm not ready. Tom, Paul in Long Beach says, damn, I'm going to miss Jennifer Beals. More leg warmers, please. She's a maniac on the floor. Okay, seriously, though. Is Max Rebo gone? Now, I know Max Rebo is not the most important figure in Star Wars, but I love Max Rebo. Tom?
Yeah, and I think we
alive?
actually touched upon this morning, actually.
We did.
I didn't see Max Rebo there.
He was not there.
So
I didn't see his
like
fingers
I
on
said,
the keyboard and his little...
He doesn't die, he multiplies.
Mhm.
And Mikey Lito's cracking me up. He said that was supposed to be a safe space. Yeah.
Now with a bunch of Twi'leks asking, can I clean your helmet? I'm saying. I'm just saying.
I
Would you like
know,
your helmet
cleaning
clean?
and polishing, they offer both services, and
Yeah.
it's whatever you need at the moment. It's a dusty world out there in Tatooine. You might as well get those services when you can. And Tom Jr. Jackson says, it is showing no one is safe. So, of course, I had to do the maniac joke. And, I think that leaving us with this cliffhanger has made us, think about these choices that are so difficult in life. Like, I don't know whether I can make that decision myself, but, Grogu is still a child. And, that I kind of think, gee, is it really fair to have him do that? I'm not going to say that it's the same thing that Michael Lito was asking earlier, but it seems very hard. And I think that Luke is very sensitive to Grogu, and it may not seem that way. Like, I think Luke is an incredibly caring person, and this level of care that he has, he's very emotional. Luke is emotional. Like, this man, what he's thinking. He wears his heart on his sleeve.
You're so much like your father.
Yes, he's very emotional. I think we're going to get an interesting outcome. And Loco Lu, I want to get your opinion on this part. And it has to do with the spice. And of course, I was speaking to Tom about this earlier. And I spoke to another very reliable source and who knows the Star Wars universe well, who told me that spice trading is legal, but the type of spice that they're trading on Tatooine is like a meth lab.
Yeah. If you look at it from the cannabis point of view, there's the ones that are legalized where you need to go through the proper channels to get it, and it won't have any harmful side effects, whatever the case may be, whatever they say. Then you got the ones that's on the streets, right? Some people that haven't been tainted, you don't know that. You don't know that's been exchanged so many times. You don't know where it came from. So, matter of fact, there was a strain or a synthetic version of thus cannabis, which was causing a lot of problems here in New York and everywhere else. But if you take that real world aspect and apply it to the spice, it makes sense. It makes sense. So if spice being used for nefarious purposes, they don't want it there, specifically if it's made in that, specific way. Kind of like a cough syrup. You buy a bunch of it, you can make something else, but that's why it's regulated and controlled. Like, how much do you buy? You need to show your ID when you buy these cough syrups.
That's a good point. And I also wanted to mention to you, Mikey Lito asks, what is spice without the side effects? And I do want to say something about spice that I only just learned about, is that spice can power an engine. It's like, oh my gosh, I kind of wish we had this stuff. It seems so unbelievable and, just remarkable what spice can do. And honestly, I want to ask both of you, is this the first time we've really seen spice used? We saw Boba Fett, when he was with the Tuskens, they kind of blew some spice into his face. And I've never seen anyone do that. In fact, I've never seen anybody even use spice. Was this the first live action use of spice?
Yeah.
I actually have an answer about spice.
Oh,
I actually was looking up is the spice trade in Star Wars legal? And in the canon novel of Thrawn, it also indicates that an intermediary form of spice referred to as pre-spice can be refined into several products, some illegal, some not. Pre-spice is not an illegal substance. There are too many different products it can be turned into that are perfectly safe and legal. So spice has been around for a long time. Uh, Han Solo has mentioned it in the original trilogy, where he is a space runner, and I think at one point someone said no one wants to work with someone who will drop spice at a moment's notice.
ooh,
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I like that.
because I believe it was because whenever the Empire would show up, he would get rid of the spice. I do think that maybe what we have here is yeah, it could be probably maybe it is the spice on Tatooine could be like you said a meth version of it.
Mm-hmm.
So what we got here now is the genre of samurais, Jedis, the mob,
And Breaking
uh,
Bad.
drug trading. So like they're really taking all these genres and mixing them together, and I think what we're gonna find out is why. I think at some point we'll find out why the spice is so important.
Yes, and the Outcast Creatives. Hi, Outcast Creatives. Thank you for joining the chat. Now we've had this show. Max Rebo should come back to doing soft, soft galactic rock band storyline. Maybe they have to do an important gig on Vespa or something. Now, Max Rebo might actually be an undercover Republic spy. Now, I don't know if it's true or not, but he is certainly around a lot of people in that setting where he could hear a thing or two and perhaps, be an informant. And he goes, Max Rebo and the Pussycat Dolls. Now that I would pay to see. Um, so we have another comment that says, it's hard not to associate spice with the Dune universe. It is true. That is very true. But,
Yes, the Dune universe came first, so that everybody knows this, because I know there are some people that think that Dune was stealing from Star Wars. There are people that actually think that, but Dune came first, and Star Wars took what they can from Dune. They borrowed some things from it, and I would have to say that the Book of Boba Fett is the closest you're going to get to a Dune type story with the spice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, and one of the things I also wanted to say was that so initially the last episode 5, I thought that was kind of like a one-off episode, and that we were not going to see pretty much any of these characters. But this one actually went a little bit further and showed us more. So I almost have to assume that this was their intention all along, although it didn't feel that way in episode 5. We only have one more episode. There's a lot of unresolved questions. Honestly, I have different ideas in my mind about what will happen. And I do agree with what one of the viewers said about Grogu saying, I've got to save my Din. I've got to go and make sure he's fine. So, maybe he'll summon Din, or Din will be there and he'll decide to go there. I also wonder to myself, as you had said, Boba Fett is back to the way he was before. He's very quiet, but it's going to be a fighting episode, is it not? There's going to be, war. There's going to be fights. War could break out any minute. Are we going to see Boba Fett use his armor and his weapons the way we saw him use them in the Mandalorian series?
I believe so. I strongly believe so. you don't put all your cookies in the cookie jar and leave them out there for, anybody to come pick at it. You hide it. You hide until the very last second, and everybody's done their chores, everybody's done what they had to do, and then you pull it out and like, all right, everybody grab your cookies. That episode's going to be that. And we're supposed to see more. So I'm assuming that the final episode is going to be just like Mando season 2, which was what, an hour and change?
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
And it felt like a movie, that episode. And this upcoming episode, if we're going to see OT characters come back and little nods here and there, we're gonna get a ton of action, but more like what Star Wars always gives us. They gives us a lot of questions, and some of them answered, and some of them left in limbo for more possibilities. It's the same thing that happened with Ahsoka. Where is Ahsoka now? Where was she during here? Now we know.
Tom, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we're gonna get a fight, but I also think that this episode and the next episode are gonna be bridges that are set up towards the different shows that are coming out. So I think the Ahsoka being in this episode, we don't quite know why she was there with Luke, but we know that she's probably leaving to go back on her continued journey for Thrawn and Ezra. I think we're gonna definitely see where everybody where season 3 of The Mandalorian's gonna go, how that's gonna turn out. But we're also gonna see, will the next week's episode bring us to where we're gonna see a season 2 of Book of Boba Fett, where if it doesn't completely end, give us a complete ending, if it gives us a cliffhanger ending, will we get to see that cliffhanger continue in season 2? We don't know. So it's going to be very interesting how going forward with episode 7 or chapter 7, however you want to put it, where everything's going to be laid, what cards will be put on the table, what cards won't be put on the table, what will Boba Fett do, what won't he do. My question is, what is Fennec Shan going to do when she sees Cad Bane?
And she was the last person. She was actually the last person we saw fight Cad Bane, because it was the Bad Batch. Season 1.
Yeah,
I don't know
so
episode.
that was such a random callback to the Bad Batch of him showing up, and knowing now that Fennec is on Tatooine, and so many years later after the Bad Batch, and she sees Cad Bane. How's that gonna go down? So I have a feeling that we're probably going to see a showdown between those two at some point.
Yeah, and I have to say, of all the bounty hunters, Cad Bane is the one I feel who's most Jedi-like, because he seems to survive like the most impossible situations. The only other bounty hunting kind of crazy group that I've ever seen, I think, is Hondo. And I had made a joke. I said, I bet you Hondo's going to show up, because things are so unusual. Things are so crazy. Because with Hondo, things can be up or things can be down, and he goes with the flow, So I kind of like that attitude, because things can seem to turn at the drop of a dime in the Star Wars universe. And he just goes with it, goes with the flow. But I think it'd be very... Yes.
They can do Hondo, because they have Hondo at Galaxy's Edge. There's a robotic Hondo as you go into the Rise of the Resistance ride. So they could probably do the makeup for that at some point. All they need to do is find someone to play him. And I think it can be done with, like Holly did it with Cad Bane. Makeup and practical effects.
Absolutely. And that Cad
Yeah.
Bane he's perfect. He's absolutely perfect. That he's exactly the way I imagined he would look. Efren Guzman. Hi, Efren. How are you? He says, hello, PGF spinoff show. Yes, to all the PGS members, hi. And yeah, I suppose this is kind of like a spinoff. What are your ideas? And do you think we will get a Luke spinoff? And I think we will, but I would actually like to see an animated version in addition to a live action series with Luke and, let's say, his school. So we can kind of experience a lot of that. I mean, we have kind of experienced a little bit of the Jedi Temple in the Clone Wars, and we saw what that was like. But I want to see what Luke's school is like, because he's going to be very different from everyone else. It's true he was trained by Yoda, and Yoda is, a traditionalist. And he's trained so many Force users. So Luke is bound to have traits and specific ideals that were passed down from Yoda, and he's been passing those ideals down for 900 years. But now that Luke is on his own, I think he's going to interpret a lot of things differently. He has all the books that will guide him through, and he knows exactly what needs to be done. I think we can see a lot from him, and he has a lot to offer, and it's about time that we saw Luke come into his own. Isaiah Matthews says, I think Luke has a crush on Ahsoka. That line about him seeing her again, it was a little suspicious, LOL. I wanted to ask you both, what were your other thoughts about the episode before we wrap this fantastic spoiler view up for tonight?
Go ahead, Tom. I'll let you go first because I spoke first a lot.
Yeah, that's fine. And this is hang on a moment here. What I would say is that this episode really was, let's see how many toys we could take out of the toy box and show you a way to get excited for episode 7. And I think it did its job. I really, and Dave Filoni did a beautiful job at bringing this all together. Yeah. So I would say that in the long run, we're going to see something really cool next week, I think. If not that, more like what something's gonna we're gonna see something. I don't know yet what it is. Excuse me. It's not that. We're going to see Boba Fett maybe show his hand. We're gonna see. Actually, there was a line in the episode where they had the little court jester or whoever he was for the mayor. The mayor's flunky. Oh, it's just
that poor guy.
just a scheduled vacation. And obviously something's going to happen. I think we're going to see him get killed. At some point someone's going to end up killing him, because who knows if the Pikes are like, he's probably giving them all the stuff, or
oh yeah,
for all we know, he has something on him that's recording all the conversations, and maybe the Pikes know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Darth Plato says, I don't think Luke should be center stage. It diminishes the new characters too much. And he has to be gradually set to a mentor role. Loco Lu, what are your other thoughts that you have not mentioned so far tonight, and your final thoughts about episode 6 of the Book of Boba Fett?
Well, episode 6 is Star Wars. If I was to sum it up, it is Star Wars. We get OT characters, we get Clone War characters, we get some new characters, we get beloved characters we have not seen but read, and finally we get the live action introduction of our favorite bounty hunter, who is not Boba Fett, and that is Cad Bane, who seems to have 1,000 lives. He he lives longer than freaking Palpatine at this point because of how many times he had close calls. Now, there's one thing I did notice. If you look at his arms, he has what looks like Mandalorian gauntlets on.
Oh.
So that's something to look at. That may play a factor, may not play a factor. I'm just speculating at this point. But as far as the show, and I'm enjoying it. It's like it kind of throws you off in the very beginning, but this is what people wanted to know. What happened to Boba? Well, Boba got soft, and now he's trying to turn a new leaf, so to speak, but still keep to some traditional ways. Yes, he's still a badass, and yes, he can whip butt. And a lot of people had a lot of problems with that scene in the marketplace with all the shielded assassins and stuff. But it's all about progressing the story. If you have him beating everybody, you have no story. You basically fall into the Superman syndrome, where he beats everybody. There's nothing to beat him but a piece of rock. So, you want to have story. You want to make him as human as possible. And knowing what he went through and what traumas he takes with him into being a daimyo, being a baron, being the head of this underground society of heathens, and trying to show them a different way. Like, yeah, you could be a badass if you want, but you're gonna do it under my watch. And if you cross any lines, best believe you're gonna be some repercussions. And I have one prediction.
Yes.
We saw this with my boy Machete. He's gonna be coming back for the next episode, and we're gonna see Boba Fett ride his Rancor. That's gonna be the next episode. I guarantee it.
And you know something? This is a very special moment because there's so much that we're looking forward to. It's not just one thing. There's a lot going on, and so many predictions. Like I said, I agree with the idea that Grogu will say, I have to leave. I got to go help Din. And Grogu's going to be like, it's all coming back to me now. Like that Celine Dion song, if I move it like this, it's just going to be like, and it's all coming back to him. It's going to be just the coolest thing ever. Grogu's going to come into his own and have a transformation himself. So, that fighting team of Din and Grogu will be absolutely spectacular. They're going to be able to find out who the Pikes are, but I have a feeling that maybe not everybody's going to make it out alive. So, we've already experienced that with Garza Fwip, and, I love that character. I think Jennifer Beals did a beautiful job with her, but there will be more casualties, and the Pikes are not done. They're very well-heeled, organized crime. So we're going to get more surprises. We're going to get more Grogu. We're going to get more Din. We're going to get more Boba Fett. We're going to get more Fennec Shand. And certainly the war over this amazing planet that is a dust bowl, but obviously is strategically important, will still rage on for, it seems like, for eons. I don't know if it's eons, but for a long time. So I just wanted to thank both of you gentlemen. Tom Jr. Jackson, thank you for always being here and being a mod and helping out as usual. And Loco Lu, thank you so much. Tom Jr. Jackson, where can people find you?
Okay, I can be found on Twitter. No secret there and please don't be shocked, at Tom Jr. Jackson. And I'm also here with the lovely RrrMmmm moderating in the chats here, and I'm on these live streams with her for the Book of Boba Fett, and also on the Network in the chats as well, and on Fridays helping out if Rob needs it. I also want to say to all of you out there, if you're watching this for the first time or you're just checking this out, be sure to click the like button, hit subscribe. When you click the like button, it gets us shown more and it brings our status up a bit. Click the subscribe button and then ring the notification bell so you know when shows like this come out, or the Sunday brunch that RrrMmmm does, which, by the way, great show. The first one she did last week. Come back on Sunday and check that out. as well. I want to. Hey, we got Polly, the Latino slant in the chat. Hey, Polly.
Hey, Polly.
I want to just thank you all for coming. I'm here, and if you want to follow me on the Twitter. Now I'm sounding old. Follow me on Twitter. I'll follow you back, and I'll answer any questions you guys have. And I want to thank Loco Lu for coming too.
Yes,
Thank
and
you.
Loco Lu, where can we find you?
You can find me here on YouTube. I have my own YouTube channel where I review action figures. I will be doing a show with 1/6 Man 2099, which we all know Leo. And we'll be doing Figure Flex Friday, where we'll be showing off hot toys that are going to be, something of a flex, meaning something that not everyone has in their collection, but is a personal favorite, if you will, things like that. But I do reviews on my channel, and I have other things coming up down the pipeline in regards of posing and photography. So you can catch me there at Loco Lu on YouTube and Instagram, Loco Lu 526. So thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure. I like this show. This was awesome.
Well, we'll definitely have you back, Loco Lu. So, you should count in next week. Go ahead and put us on. We're giving you notice. Please come back for our next one for sure. And for me,
Where
thank
can we
you,
find
everybody.
you?
I'm sorry. Oh, yeah.
Where can we find you, RM?
Well, it's funny you asked, Tom. You can find me here on Positive Fandom, my YouTube channel. You can also find me streaming on Twitch under Positive Fandom, one word. But on Monday nights, you can find me on Toxic Femme streaming with Lorena Creole. On Thursday nights and sometimes Wednesdays, you can find me on the 1/6 Scale Man Network with Lael, doing Uncivilized Scoundrels. On Fridays at 12 p.m. Eastern, you can find me at Midnight's Edge in the Morning with Tom and Andre and Cameron Pasha. On Friday nights, you can find me on the Burnett Network for Midnight Meta. And on Sundays at 10:30 a.m., you can find me live for my Sunday brunch, where we talk about all the things we love about pop culture. And sometimes you can find me doing these live streams here, very special live stream with the Book of Boba Fett. So I do want to say thank you, Jared Snyder. You love the passion in this channel, and we love it so much. And thank you, guys. I love everybody in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us and contributing to the conversation, making tonight so special. We will be back next week for the conclusion, which I'm sure will just absolutely blow our minds. And I look forward to seeing each and every one of you to come back. Thank you so much, everybody. And remember, as you go on in your day-to-day lives, always remember to be kind.